first grade. Today we're going to be talking about shapes and lines, and we're going to use that knowledge to help us make our very own rocket ship. So we're going to start by making our ship. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with a big rectangle. I don't want my rectangle to be really skinny. I want it to be nice and wide. So I'm going to turn my rectangle not vertical, but I'm going to turn it diagonal so it looks like my rocket is shooting. If you want your rocket to shoot straight up, that's fine. Or if you want it to go this way, that's fine. So I'm going to start in the middle of my page and I'm going to draw a great big rectangle. And that's going to be the start of my rocket. At the top of my rocket, I'm going to add a big triangle on top. For the top of my rocket. On the sides, I can add 2 more triangles, but I make them kind of long. Kind of looks like a shark fin. Then I'll add another little shark fin. That's starting to look more like a rocket. I can put a window in my rocket ship, and this is where you get to be creative. We're going to make the flames, but instead of doing regular flames, we're going to use our knowledge of different types of lines to create line patterns for the back of our rocket. So you know, if I go up and down and up and down and up and down, well, that's a zigzag line. What if I do a line like this? That's a dashed or a broken line. If my line does loop-de-loops like this, I've got a curly line. A wavy line. So there's all sorts of different types of lines. I'm going to put lots of different lines. See, it's a zigzag still, but now it's smaller. So I'm going to do lots of different lines that come out of the back of my rocket. I don't want to do too many though, because then I'm not going to be able to see them. So once I've got quite a few lines and I can see them clearly, now we're going to get to add some paint. So the paint I'm going to be using today, these are tempera paints. They do not work unless they're wet. So y'all remember Bob from last year. Here's Bob the brush. And we've got water. Something new this year is we're going to have a sponge that lives in our water jugs. We don't take this sponge out. He lives there. So if the brush is Bob, that makes him SpongeBob. So we're going to make sure our brush is nice and wet before we dip it in the paint. When I dip it in the paint, if I just touch it, that's not quite enough. What I want to do instead is I want to swirl my brush on the color that I want. So now it doesn't really look like there's paint in here yet, but there is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and paint, and I'm going to try and follow the lines I made with my Sharpie markers. Whoop. So zigzag lines. If I run out of paint, what do I need to do? That's right, I need to go back and get some more. Now, if I'm ready to switch colors, I can't just go grab another color, can I? No, you remember from last year we got to wash our brush. Do you see the little ridges at the bottom of my brush cup? If I drag my brush back and forth gently along those ridges, it cleans them off really good. Because if I just dip them in the water, that doesn't clean them. He needs a little bit of scrubbing. So I'm going to gently go back and forth over the ridges. Now he's nice and clean. If my brush is too wet, this is where we use SpongeBob. I can just draw an X on SpongeBob to dry him off. But I need a lot of water, but these are going to start getting wet. So if it's already wet on the tray, you could just dip right back in. But if you need more water, you just dip your brush back in. Now some of our paint looks like it's empty. Like, oh my goodness, I'm all the way to the bottom on my yellow. But do you see this right here? This is actually all paint. So I can still get quite a bit of yellow out. There's still lots of yellow in there, even though it looks like it's empty. So instead of sticking it right in the middle, I'm going to swirl on the side where that hard paint is. and it's going to come off on my brush. So I got to get it nice and wet, and I'm going to swirl, 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 and then I'm ready to go. See, there's plenty of yellow there for me. So I'm going to use my brush to go over that line. When I paint with Bob, Bob likes his hair to stay nice and neat. So you need to make sure that Bob is like a dancing ballerina on the paper. Do ballerinas stomp their feet as hard as they can? Goodness, no they don't. Ballerinas are up on their tippy toes. So Bob needs to be painting on his tippy hair, if you will. All right, first grade, we're going to learn how to make stars. We're going to make a background for our rocket ship. So on one side of my page, I'm going to do some practice stars. Let me show you the easy way to make a star. I'm going to start by making a triangle, just the top of it, kind of like a mountain. Then I'm going to make a diagonal line up like that. I'm going to come to the bottom. I'm going to make another diagonal line up like that. And then I make a straight line across. And I've made a star. Let's try a little bit smaller. Make a mountain. Make a diagonal line up from the bottom of the mountain. Come to the other side, another diagonal line up. And then straight line across. Then I can fill it in with color. And I've made a star. So we're going to practice this a few times. Mountain, diagonal line up, diagonal line up, go straight across. If the top of my star looks teeny, teeny, tiny like that, I can always come back in and make it just a little bit bigger because I'm going to be coloring my stars in anyways. Okay? So we'll practice a few times on one side. Then, once we've done some practice, we're going to write our name, and we're going to write our color group. We're either red, orange, blue, or green. So whichever one you are is the one that you write. And then we're going to flip our paper over. We're going to start making stars around the edges of our paper, because our rocket ship's going to go in the middle, so we don't need to put stars in the middle. We're going to make stars around the edges. After I've added my stars to my black paper, I'm going to be using a glue stick to attach my rocket ship to my black paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my black paper out of the way. I'm going to turn my white paper over. I'm going to make my glue stick go around the perimeter or the outside of my paper, and I'm going to give it one good wiggly lines worth of glue stick glue down in the middle. I'm going to take my paper. I'm going to line it up so I can see my stars. Some of them might get cut off. That's okay. They still look like stars. They're adorable. And I'm going to press and rub. Rub is the key word, not bang. Bang does not help. Rubbing helps get that glue to spread and set. And now my rocket ship is all done.